in their veins. Mackie and Judd on SKOR North and SKORNorth.com.
Yeah, definitely. You got a little weight on you. You got to run around. It's a little bit hot, but it's about not losing your mind when the pads come on. Knowing what your responsibility is, and just running to the ball. Really, just getting in shape.
What's the competition like out here? Is that a good thing to create that with everybody with pads on?
It's good. There's a little bit of hecticness. I don't know if that's a word, but it's a little bit of that. A little bit of chaos. But like you said, you gotta find your brain amongst all that.
I love questions sometimes, media questions like, is it a good thing to get those pads on? Talk about pads.
I've done it though. We all have.
Just serve the ball up and so what's
Talk about
out
that.
there?
How much
is
sweating there?
Yeah, you know what the answer is going to be, but you need the soundbite, right? So
Can you talk about? That's always my favorite. Can you talk about?
That's a huge pet peeve of mine, dude.
That's
You
a big
sat
one.
there for 3 hours and watched a baseball game. You could think of a question that doesn't start with talk about. Talk about your performance. Do you have a specific question about the performance you'd like me to answer?
You guys, these guys.
I will say, in my career as a reporter and a beat writer, never once started a question with talk about. Okay, at least not that I know of. Maybe somebody else can.
I'll take the blame. I'm sure I have.
Anyhow, the audience is in for a treat here today on Mackie and Judd on this Tuesday. We will get to a pecking order later on in the spirit of trade deadline season, and we will do a full recap. If it warrants an emergency episode, we'll be on guard later on today on this Tuesday. Otherwise, we'll do a full recap tomorrow on Mackie and Judd. We were recording with Patrick Royce about 2 minutes in, and the Twins traded for one of the best closers in baseball this year, Jorge Lopez. You can get that full breakdown over on the Royce episode that we did today. So the treat for the audience, however, is Judd had so many camp notes.
I did, yes.
For Purple Daily, we couldn't fit them all into Purple Daily. So you're going to get bonus camp notes here.
Wow.
From Judd Zulgad. What a treat. Normally we save the camp notes for Purple Daily and we bring some bigger talkers over here, but we have spillover Vikings training camp notes.
Yep. So full disclosure, Vikings fans, on Purple Daily today, I went through a ton of notes. Like go watch it. Backup quarterback, lots of good stuff. But the full disclosure is this. I withheld the highlight of the day from you.
Wow.
And you have to be on Mackie and Judd now to hear about that. So, if you've got friends that only consume PD, you call them right now. You text them. You say, you got to watch Mackie and Judd because Judd Zulgad, or as I like to be called now, Jugs Zulgad, is about to unveil the highlight of the day from the first full padded practice. Nobody was messing around here. This wasn't shoulder pads and cute little shorts. This was full pads. And I want to share the highlight of the day.
Football.
Kirk Cousins drops back to pass in a team drill. Gets some pressure on him. Delivers the ball on what I would call a short to intermediate route. I think he was trying to connect with a tight end. I'm not positive who the intended target is because Dalvin Cook was also near. Neither one of them caught it though. Because making a diving pick, Cousins' third interception of training camp, but the first by a non-cornerback, making a diving pick was Eric Kendricks.
Mm-hmm.
It was a great
He's been known
play.
to do things like this.
Leaping
picks, diving picks, one-handed picks.
And here's what hit me upon watching this. Here's what a full padded practice blow to the head. Here's what hit me when I saw that. Now, Kendricks, I think we all can agree, did not have, and this does not mean he was terrible, but he certainly did not have his best year in 2021. I think Phil has documented pretty well from PFF that he dropped off. Okay.
And the Vikings run defense, which is led in large part by Eric Kendricks, was terrible. Yeah.
But run through the litany or the list of interceptions Kendricks has recorded during his career, including one he had last year. Might have been against Stafford. And I've always said some of the picks he makes, he has the instincts of a safety. Like he has instincts that I think a lot of traditional linebackers just don't have. I would say a guy like Barr, and Anthony Barr at his best was not a bad player. So let's not go back. Oh, Anthony Barr sucks, Judd. No, Jugs is telling you right now, Anthony Barr could play football. He dropped off because of injuries, but he could play football. But when you think about Kendricks and his ability to drop into coverage, right? And think about, and So a lot of guys who play his position, to just explain this simply to me, their emphasis or where they're best is coming forward, right? Coming up to stop the run, coming up to hit. Dropping back is not them at their best. But Eric Kendricks, if you think about his picks, often goes back into coverage and makes really acrobatic, athletic interceptions that look like a safety. And tie that into this. I've told you guys, my sense is that the Vikings are going to employ their linebackers much more as safeties. They're built like them. They look like them. I would say it's almost indistinguishable between a lot of the safeties and linebackers on this team right now. So I saw that play and I thought to myself, you know what? What they're doing schematically and from a personnel standpoint of what they're targeting actually fits Eric Kendricks incredibly well. And because of that, and I had not thought of this before, I wonder if he has a tremendous bounce back year, because he's going to be used in a way that more than ever appeals to what he's good at.
Interesting. Yeah, I think, and there's, and just to back up a step here too, I think a lot of people are wondering, what are you talking about? He's took a step back last year in some form. Well, his tackle numbers have always been high, and oftentimes those sort of back of the football card defensive stats are all we get access to if you're not like a PFF subscriber or you deep dive into NFL analytics or whatnot. It's a little hard when you get away from the receivers and the quarterbacks and the running backs to quantify how good or bad a player is playing. Tackles are probably one of the worst statistics. Not that they don't matter. Like, give me a guy that makes a bunch of tackles. Don't get me wrong.
You're so right.
But are you making the tackle where you're supposed to make the tackle at the line of scrimmage or 2 yards after? Or are you making the tackle 5 or 6 yards past? Are you slow a step? And so when we talk about Kendricks losing a step, I think I'm leaning on two things. Number one, Pro Football Focus does a great job of, and by the way, all 32 teams pay Pro Football Focus to help with scouting projects, and they use their analytics. So it's not just like some company on an island that are doing their own thing. It's a legitimate, credible source for linebacker play, offensive line play, interior defensive line play, and it just gives you a better idea of how some of these guys are performing. And it was by far one of Kendricks' worst seasons in the NFL, according to Pro Football Focus. The run game specifically is where he was dinged the most. And so was he a little bit slower? Was it in part because maybe the defensive line wasn't as good without Danielle Hunter, and therefore there's more of an avalanche coming at Eric Kendricks, and he's getting lost in blocks? Like, there's a bunch of different reasons why he could have taken a step back in the run game. But in general, the Vikings were terrible stopping the run, and Kendricks is a centerpiece to that run-stopping defense, and so he bears some of the blame, even if it's not 100% on him. Do I think with Danielle Hunter coming back and Zadarius Smith being healthy, and Michael Pierce barely played, and now they're going to replace him with Harrison Phillips, who's going to be hopefully more durable and play a couple hundred more snaps, but just having better teammates around him, and Lewis Seen might be helpful in the run game. Yep. Does that help Eric Kendricks get back to where he was in a new scheme? Yes, I don't think it's inevitable that, he may have taken a step back last year and he's 30 now, and so now he's screwed. Is it possible that happens because of his age? Yes. Do I still think there's a resurgence in there? Yes, I do. Yeah, and I think the most important thing to his drop-off, especially as you just said, Phil, in the run game, is this. The defensive tackles weren't good, and that means his tackles are high, but he's not going to get credit. Like, if you go back in time, there have been some really average linebackers who have incredible tackle totals. So it means nothing. But the problem is when almost every time a running back got the ball and essentially went up the A-gap, he got through the A-gap and he's on Kendricks now. So yeah, the other thing that I saw, and it's a playoff of why I think Kendricks stands to have a bounce back year. We're going to call this a 3-4 base because it's fun to call it a 3-4. I love to call it 3-4. First time since 1984, I think that the Vikings have run a 3-4 or 85. That being said, the more I see this thing is so multiple, it's incredible. There was one, I'm going to give you, I mean, here, just quickly. Matt LaFleur, if you're watching this, turn it down. Dan Campbell, if you're watching this, turn it down. And just briefly, and then I will whoever the new Bears coach
when
is.
You can come back.
Yeah,
Matt
that guy.
Eberflus.
Eberflus, turn it down. Anybody who's going to play the Vikings, turn this down. But I'm going to talk to you about a formation I saw yesterday. And this is where this thing is going to be, like, 3-4 does not do this justice.
You're about to breach protocol here.
But I think I can describe protocol. I think they don't like it if I write it, and if this was on film, oh my God, it's over for me. My career has ended. I think I can describe it. Because I'm going to describe it, but I'm not going to paint it enough to be a problem.
Okay.
There was
this is where a nuanced reporter comes up and handles this. This is about to be a clinic here.
There was a formation. I'm not kidding. Now it's exploitable, but it just shows you something. 3 defensive linemen basically tilted on the same side, on the right side. Nothing but space, and then another with his hand down, if I'm not mistaken, on the left side. I have no idea what the look was, but so basically it was 3 guys here. Okay, I'm going to describe this. If you're watching,
is your thumb the third guy?
Yeah, what was the third?
No,
oh, I see. There's 3. Okay,
3 guys here.
Is your thumb the safety creeping up, or what?
No, my thumb is just in the way, okay? I can't take it off.
You should like rotate your hand a little bit. It would help.
Okay.
There you go.
No,
there
no,
you go.
But they were like this. They were like this, the 3 guys. But anyway, and then the other guy's over here. And so what you did was you created a huge gap in the line, but there was obviously a rhyme or reason to it. What I'm saying
they're
is
trying to funnel. Maybe they're overloading for a pass rush.
They're overloading in this thing, and the point is this thing is going to be so multiple. And there are times you have 2 down linemen. There's times you have 3. There's times you have 4. I have seen now in the past 2 practices, Zadarius Smith putting his hand down now, which I didn't see at first. Hunter playing on the left side, playing on the right side. Zadarius Smith at times with his hand down, playing by Hunter on the right side. The point is they are going to create as much confusion as they possibly can to keep offenses and especially quarterbacks on their toes. So don't think that this is going to be like a 3-4. This is not your father's 3-4. This is not Sports Dad's 3-4. This is a defense that's going to present, in my opinion, a very simple thing. Positionless football.
Confusion and chaos and the illusion of complexity.
Yep.
Yeah. Speaking of multiple, you want to know what's multiple? The benefits that my dog, Maya Mackey, gets from Nutrisource chicken and rice food. We busted open our little goodies box of Nutrisource, got some treats in there. It's all about digestion and gut health with Nutrisource foods, Judd. And you can see on the screen here, if you're watching on YouTube, this is a very excited Maya Mackey as I'm about to scoop some Nutrisource into her bowl. How does Stella react when you bust out the Nutrisource treats or foods?
Let's just say Sports Dad gets woken up by the dog approximately 6:10 a.m. Central Time. And there's one reason why. She can't wait. And I don't blame her. It's Nutrisource time. She's like, Daddy, it's Nutrisource time. And I'm like, of course it is. Let me get up out of bed right now and feed you. She has absolutely loved it. And we're not even talking about the treats, which, by the way, Stella, huge fan of. Huge fan of. And you know what? They're small enough where I can control them. There's nothing worse than like a big treat that you got to break up, right? And then you're like, how much should I give my dog? It's not a meal. Yeah. With Nutrisource, they basically spell it out for you. It's fantastic. And I think the old girl there, don't hear me out on that one. I think the old girl there, I think that she is getting healthier because of Nutrisource.
That's right. NutrisourcePetFoods.com to find a retailer near you. NutrisourcePetFoods.com, the official dog food of Mackey and Judd. Also a shout out to our friends at Underdog, making it easy to play fantasy sports, Dex.
Yeah, Underdog Fantasy, the best and easiest way to play fantasy sports. There was nothing. The reason I quit fantasy football in 2015 after winning my Dynasty League after 8 years of trying to do so was I was just sick of the management, right? I was sick of always trying to figure out bye weeks. You know, I can't always draft guys that are playing all in the same bye weeks. I'm trying to handcuff a running back. It gets too much maintenance. Underdog will set the best possible lineup for you. So you can do a draft, and everyone knows the best part about the fantasy football season is your draft. And then you draft the players, and they'll just set the best lineup. You don't have to worry. If you take 2 quarterbacks, they'll start the best quarterback for you. And you can join Underdog Fantasy with promo code SKOR, SKOR, and they'll double your first deposit up to $100, plus some great pick'em options. And there's not just the NFL involved. You got baseball, you got PGA. There's plenty of options at the pick'em options too. Underdog Fantasy. Download the Underdog Fantasy app.
All right, back to Judd's bonus camp notes here. Too many notes for Purple Daily to contain that we had to spill them over into Mackie and Judd today.
So the Kendricks play of the day was the most exciting. But I also think that we should examine the veteran players. Because, we've talked about a lot, right? Cam Dantzler going into his third year now. Andrew Booth Jr. going into his rookie season. Veteran players. I think this is a good thing. In the first padded practice, and basically, so the last two practices have been pretty spirited. Saturday, they took Sunday off, practiced in full pads on Monday. I think this is a good thing. I have not noticed Patrick Peterson. I don't think that's a bad thing. I have not noticed. Cousins has spent a lot of time, and I'm sure it's on purpose to a certain point. He has spent a lot of time going at Booth, going at Dantzler, which is a good thing. Patrick Peterson, in great shape again. And look, we theoretically talk about him falling off the cliff just because of age. And he is clearly not the player that he once was. But you know what? He's still a pretty solid player. And I think the fact that there has been no attempt to, exploit him in training camp and see if the old man's getting too long in the tooth is a good thing. And so ordinarily I might be like, I haven't seen him. But in this case, I think it's actually a positive that Patrick Peterson, who is playing with the first team defense at left cornerback, has basically not been noticed. He's made a couple plays here and there, but nothing out of the ordinary.
Yeah, some of these veterans, I'm trying to think back. All they know is Camp Zim, right? Or did Adam Thielen get 1 year of Leslie Frazier, maybe? I'm trying to think.
He was a practice squad guy. He might have
got 2013 or something.
You know what? Because I think, because he was a teammate of Jared Allen's when Thielen was on the practice squad. So yes, he got 1 year of Frazier.
So he got 1 year of Camp Frazier.
And
otherwise,
so did Smith, right?
Yeah, Harrison Smith got for sure a year or two of Camp Frazier, but it's been 95% Camp Zim. So just seeing these veterans and how they react to Camp KOC, and I think one of the big themes this season is going to be as the Vikings try to time up this. Hey, we can breathe some life into this roster that's going to be pretty similar with just better coaching, guys that KOC and some of these coordinators that connect better with the players.
Yep.
Can they time up better coaching? And a sprinkling of new players and a better system, both offensively and maybe defensively, with the age curve of some of these key players. It is not unfair to ask whether a 32-year-old Harrison Smith or a 31-year-old Eric Kendricks, Adam Thielen with the injuries he's had, right? Mm-hmm. Patrick Peterson. It's not unfair to ask, can all those guys at least avoid going over the cliff at the same time or maybe even get better? Because they're all at the age where you would start to potentially decline. So I'm just very curious to see now. Some of those guys, like if Eric Kendricks goes down and hits the age cliff, there's a lot less depth at linebacker. They're kind of screwed. Thielen would be a huge loss if he got hurt or went over the age cliff, but at least they have Justin Jefferson and KJ Osborne, and if Amir Smith-Marsette's your third receiver, you can kind of live with that. Right. And Patrick Peterson, the more that Booth shows up in training camp, the more you're like, if he hits an age cliff, it's not that big of a deal.
Yep.
But I'm definitely interested to see if those guys can extend their prime by one more year to mesh with KOC and the new systems here.
Off that point, Thielen has looked good and clearly remains what I would consider to be Cousins' safety net. Jefferson's made some nice catches. I honestly wonder how much work they're trying to get him. And I will say this, and this is from a SKOR North guy on the sideline. Every time Jefferson goes up and catches a pass and comes down, because he's got those spindly legs, right? I get nervous because, the leg comes down and he's great, but I'm just like, oh my God, I don't really need, I've seen too many knees go. Thielen's been a primary target. And I think that is, so I think it's one, because Kirk sees him as his top fallback option. I also think that it's important, though, to see exactly what he has left because, he's been hurt, the last 2 years? Certainly missed time last year. So the Thielen, on that note, he looks pretty good so far. I do think that this might be it, or he definitely is probably nearing the end of what's been a really good career. But that being said, Thielen, to me, so far, looks like he could be health provided in for a pretty good year. Yeah. And to your point, Osborne coming up behind him now and continuing to challenge is just a good thing.
Well, I kind of take issue with some of the chatter around Thielen. He's definitely not the same receiver he was overall when he was a back-to-back Pro Bowler and an All-Pro in 2017-18. And he's in the injury thing. Yeah, he's definitely grinded through some injuries. He's only really missed 5 games over the past 2 years. So it's, he's played in 28 games over the past 2 years. So it's not like he's missed Danielle Hunter level time.
Uh-huh.
And over the last 2 years, as maybe some of his speed has eroded and his health has diminished either because of luck or otherwise, he has also become one of the best red zone targets in the entire league. The dude has 24. Half of his touchdowns, he's been in the league for almost a decade. Half of his touchdowns have come in the last 2 years. 24 touchdowns the last 2 years.
Yeah, he was great in the red zone.
So he doesn't, and by the way, with Justin Jefferson and KJ Osborne and even Amir Smith-Marset, Thielen doesn't. If Thielen is just great in the red zone and great on third down, that's all they need from him. Now, maybe he's being paid more than to just be those things, but
right.
If he just just be reliable, catch first down passes on 3rd and 8, right, and go get 9 touchdowns in the red zone this season. And if the Vikings are overpaying a little bit for that, whatever. We'll just kind of figure it out next time. Next time the contract talk comes around next spring. So I don't know. I'm good with him in his role. I don't need him to be anything that he was 5 years ago at this point.
So we talk about I think a fair expectation for this offense is that it be at the minimum top 10 scoring, right? Like I think top 10 is fair. Like I think it could be top 5, but if they are 11th or worse, it's disappointing. Here's another challenge I got. This team should be top 5 red zone. When you look at the weapons, when you look at what they have, I mean, and enough of this, and we've seen this, enough of this crap of, well, between the 20s we're great, and then we get in there, and now it's, hey, Greg Joseph, can you make a field goal? Look at the offensive weapons that this team has, from Dalvin Cook to Jefferson, Thielen, as you just said, Irv Smith potentially, hopefully, Osborne. When you look at that, there is no reason why this team should not be, not top 10, top 5 red zone execution production.
So they were, just so you guys know, they were 9th in red zone percentage, meaning when you get to the red zone, what percentage of the time are you converting to a touchdown? And so they were 9th, that's fine. The Niners were number 1, which is interesting. The Buccaneers number 2, Seahawks number 3, Chargers 4, and then the Titans were 5th. If you're just wondering what percentage of the time do their drives end in an offensive score, they were 15th last year. So this is I think where you can make up even more ground. So the Chiefs and the Patriots, the Patriots being on this list is crazy. The Chiefs and the Patriots both scored on just under 50% of their drives. Now I think the Patriots were probably kicking a lot more field goals than some of the other teams in here, because they didn't strike me as a high-scoring offense. Right. But they scored on just under 50% of their offensive series. The Rams were at 46%, Chargers 46%, Bills 45%, Cardinals 45%, Packers 44%, Buccaneers. So these are like the elite offenses you would think of. The Vikings were 15th. 39% of their offensive drives ended in scores. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't like Greg Joseph, he missed like 6 field goals or something, or 5 field goals last year. So it wasn't like the kicker missed 12 field goals. There were just too many drives ending in 3 and outs. And then you could probably argue there were too many drives just ending in field goals that should have been touchdowns too. So how can they push that further into the red zone? And then in the red zone, how can they cash in more? And I think we've gotten to the point where a lot of fans are like, oh, they're 9th in red zone percentage, or well, they're top half of the league in scoring percentage. What's the goal around here? The goal isn't to just they're like 12th. They're 14th in points per game. That's not that bad. Look at the defense over here.
Right.
This offense with these weapons, now with this scheme, should not be 14th in scoring. I'm sorry. They should not be 15th in scoring percentage on drives. It's got to be better than that.
And that success starts with this. False starts, too. How many times the last 2 years it feels like, and last year I feel like it's for certain,
The
How many
season
times
started with it.
did they get? But did they get to like the opponent's 17?
Yeah.
And then Udo or somebody would false start. And now you're back 5 yards again. That's where it starts. It starts with discipline, but the execution in the red zone for a team with this, because if you think about the variables that this team has, weapons-wise, right, in the red zone, it should be a pick your poison because we're going to score. So, like, if you want to cover Thielen, awesome. Jefferson is in single coverage. If you want to cover Jefferson, double him. Awesome. Cook's there. Like, if you think about how many weapons Kirk has, if he can get protection, which he should now, if he could get protection, though, this should be an offense that fires consistently in the red zone.
Yes. I mean, what more do you want there? Judd's bonus camp notes spilling over into red zone scoring percentage discussions.
Kendricks bounce back, red zone success.
Oh, my gosh. Amazing right there. Just inject all of the footballs into my veins after that.